Kyle Shanahan has reached a moment in his career, life and career, where what he says is going to be dissected. It's going to be listened to multiple times.
And stuff.
It's kind of scary, actually. You ever thought about that? I was thinking about that a couple times this week. Kyle Shanahan. It would almost be scary to speak. The microphone turns on and you're like, good Lord, if I have the wrong tone in my voice, if I choose the wrong word one time, it's 10 days of fires to put out. You know what I mean?
And you wonder why Bill Belichick does it the way he does it.
Great point.
And he is maybe the best to ever do it in terms of we're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah, well, we're on to Cincinnati.
And the whole, he will say nothing.
Nothing.
And turns out, and you know this because Rich Orenberger, a guy you did radio with for years and a guy that we all know, Rich would tell you that he's a cut-up. And many people have said he's hilarious and he's a lot of fun and his personality is big. But then he gets on the microphone and it's, we're going to try to go out and we're going to try and win and we're going to try and, get more yards than we give up. We're going to try to score points on offense and not give up points on defense.
Your answer's already too long. Your answer,
Totally.
he would be done 5 seconds ago. Yeah,
Bill, what's your approach on third down to get first downs?
To get a first down.
Yeah, well, we're on to Cincinnati.
Totally. He's amazing. And I think Kyle emulates, and many coaches emulate that same style. But Kyle will mix in a little bit of humor.
No, yeah, he'll talk and sure, self-deprecating. And I think Kyle tries to tell you what he can tell you. That's the difference. Bill is just like, I don't care. I'm not telling you anything. And maybe some people have seen a thing or two where they do know he likes to joke around. He's got a potty mouth, all that. You know what you might really be surprised about with Bill Belichick? Rich tells me pretty caring dude. He called Rich to let him know he was being cut. That conversation took about 40 minutes.
Wow.
Sat there on the phone with him.
It wasn't a 10-second thing?
For his, backup center.
Yeah, Rich, I have scissors in my hand, and you're being cut, and that's all.
We're going on to Cincinnati. And,
totally. And you're not going. You're not.
Yeah. All right, so speaking of what Kyle says, check it out. He was asked about having 4 quarterbacks.
When Purdy is a full go and is practicing all the time, do you still envision having 4 quarterbacks here?
Yep.
I don't believe you've ever done that before. I know you touched on this a little bit yesterday, but is it just because Brandon Allen you think is talented enough to stay in?
Yeah, we wanted 3 in OTAs. We had 2 for the first part, so we added a 3, and we really liked him so far. So, we don't want to just get rid of guys we like.
Whew. Now, what he's saying is interesting, and the first answer is very Belichickian. Kyle, when Brock Purdy's out there, do you envision going with 4 quarterbacks? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We don't get rid of quarterbacks that we like.
That's right.
That's the thing.
Which I know where everyone's mind goes next. Boy, you're going to eat that comment if you trade Trey Lance.
No, he's not.
Oh, yes, you are.
Oh, no, he's not. Because if he gets rid of Trey Lance, then he's telling you he doesn't like him.
I know, but he's not. But he's going to deny that. He's going to deny that. I'm telling you, that's sort of what I mean by, gosh, Kyle, you can't mess up. You cannot mess up one little word because the way our business is, I'm pointing the finger even on ourselves here. If he trades Trey Lance in 3 weeks, of course we're going to be right here with that comment. We don't get rid of players we like. And he's going to be like, well, okay. No, that's not what I meant.
Right. Well, that's exactly what he meant. But you can't then, and you're not going to ever come out and say, hey, Kyle, you traded Trey Lance for a 4th-round pick and a conditional 5th. You said 3 weeks ago that you don't get rid of quarterbacks that you actually like. So are you saying that you don't actually like him?
No, I don't really consider that as, quote, getting rid of him because we got something in return.
Exactly. Done. Boom.
Yeah.
And it's whatever. We don't get rid
Done,
of quarterbacks
boom,
that we
and
like.
then you and I talk about it for the next 8 days. So
but
it's
again,
not
to
done,
the greater
boom.
point, which is if they go 13-4 and they win the Super Bowl, it's done. Boom. Who cares? If you go 9-8 and you lose a wild card game or you don't make the playoffs, it's a different story. So all of this is nonsense. What we do, what fans think, all of it, none of it matters if this team does not perform at the level where they think they should perform. And this team should be good. This team should be there in the end of January when we have a conference championship Sunday and there's a game in the morning and a game in the afternoon. If this team is not playing one of those two games, it's a failure.
On how Trey Lance handled his first team reps today.
Great. I mean, it's third year calling the plays, third year getting in and out of the huddle, so it's for all of them. It's always easier, but he's doing awesome at it.
Yeah, so there's not much
Calling
there.
the plays and getting in out of the huddle.
Well, here's the thing that
Said nothing about throwing the ball.
No, but do you know what I hear there? And this is an important thing in terms of patience. I hear people all the time, we still haven't seen Trey Lance. They got to give him a chance. How do we know? And Kyle, in 8 seconds, twice said third year. This is a third-year player.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know injuries. I get it. What year was James Wiseman when the Warriors gave up?
Third year, Mark.
Exactly. That's a huge year. So there's a big part of this story we don't talk about a lot that I think is a very unfortunate reality for Trey Lance. Because people, when you look at it, you want to see him play. You want to see if he can be good. And then if he either doesn't get an opportunity or he makes a young mistake, oh, well, this is a very inexperienced player. Right? What about the guy who went 8-0? What word would you use to describe him prior to coming into the game?
Oh, he's inexperienced. That's 7-1, but
If Trey Lance had been replaced, had lost his job to somebody who was 29 years old and had a bunch of games under his belt in the NFL, this whole thing would be really, really different.
well, he did, but it was due to injury. To your point, if Trey Lance would have lost his job without being hurt to Jimmy Garoppolo, a 29-year-old, I think he's 29, and a guy with a bunch of experience, we would be thinking differently in terms of how we feel about Trey Lance. But he lost his job because he got hurt. If Trey Lance never gets hurt, does he lose his job? Maybe.
Maybe. We
Right.
got no
And-
way to know.
Right,
No way to
exactly.
know.
If Trey Lance continued to play the way that we had seen him play, which was not great, and if they lose games at the rate that they eventually did lose games, he probably loses his job without being hurt.
Maybe. I don't know. Like, I didn't even take that out of those 5 quarters. The Chicago thing was so weird.
Yeah.
And so many, it's not even just the weather. It's not just the weather. So many of the things that happened that day had nothing to do with Trey Lance. The defense completely lost track of receivers.
Yep. The Debo fumble.
Debo fumbles
Yeah.
in the red zone. There were so many things that happened that day that had nothing to do with Trey. I sat in the hot dog line at halftime and thought, oh, it's pretty good. Like I was like,
Weren't you bragging in the hot dog line?
oh my gosh, I was crushing Bears fans.
Oh, boy.
I was crushing them. I was turning around. Just, with
And
those.
that's not normally your bit.
Yeah, but we'd had a few.
Yeah.
I had those bird eyes. I was just looking at people. What do you want to say? But actually, not really, because what was so funny, the Bears fan confidence, the self-esteem of a Bears fan
Man.
at halftime of that game,
Fragile.
they would have been like, dude, you're completely right. We're not here to talk trash to you. Our team is terrible.
Let me buy you a hot dog,
They
sir.
wanted to throttle Justin Fields at halftime. Throttle him. They wanted him gone. Get him
that's
out.
a four.
Gone. Gone. They wanted him out. They were done with the cat.
Already.
And then the second half, and it goes 10-0. And once it goes 10-0, now I was laughing at him. I'm like, you're not scoring 10 points today, you dummies. This is and so yeah, we peacocked, and then that was the end of that, and it all went south, all courtesy of was that Dante Pettis?
Dante Pettis. Yeah.
Crying out loud! That changed the whole deal, the whole stadium. It just woke him up. It totally woke him up. But that wasn't all his fault. And then against Seattle, he drives down. They get a field goal. They're driving again. That's about it. That's it. So it's like, I don't even say what you just said, which is that he was tracking in a bad way. I was like, I don't even know if I've got a finger on his pulse yet. I don't know anything yet about Trey Lance. And then, boom, he falls, he doesn't get up, and it's over. So, but he lost his job. He didn't get it back. He lost his job not just because of injury. He lost his job because a different inexperienced player came in and did way better.
Right. He lost his job because of injury, and he was unable to find his job in the lost and found, relationship, because the guy who found his job, Brock Purdy, has been unbelievable. And he went 7-1 as a starter, and he's in a spot where, if healthy, he's shown more than Trey Lance has shown, and so he gets the job, and he gets to keep the job. Now it's up to Trey Lance to either be the 2 plus, or maybe he is a 2-, and eventually Sam Darnold's better. What I saw today was a lot of split reps in terms of Sam and Trey primarily, and then Brandon Allen got clearly like the third team reps. It was Trey. Trey got a lot of the first looks with the ones, and then Sam actually later in practice got the first look with the ones. But in terms of the breakdown, and I don't have all the numbers, I didn't chart the whole thing, but I would imagine that Trey got more reps with the ones more than Sam, but it was probably pretty close.
Trey threw more passes than the other guys. You were standing with Lombardi tracking this. He says Trey was 4 for 5, Sam was 2 for 4, and Brandon was 0 for 3.
And this is in the 11-on-11 scrimmage.
Correct.
No tackling.
And he notes Lance also, and you remember this because right around the right edge, right in front of us, Lance had a really nice run. He escaped coverage, and had a nice run down the right sideline.
Did he chart the Sam Darnold? Sam Darnold did a Jordan Poole on one play.
What's a Jordan Poole?
Oh, he fell down. He just straight fell down.
I do remember that.
That was when it was on the far right side. Like you and Larry were deep down the left.
No, I saw it.
I was closer to like the 40 to 50-yard line.
He tripped over someone, I think.
Yeah,
someone stepped on his foot.
It was a straight up Jordan Poole. Yeah. Like dribble. Whoa! What happened to Sam?
I'm glad to now know what a Jordan Poole is. I should have guessed that.
Well,
I should have known.
And I was kind of playing off of your impersonation, or your impression rather, of Jordan Poole.
Yeah.
He falls a lot.
He does. He falls a lot. I do think this is, and I don't want to dismiss this, like it's an NFL practice. They obviously know what they're doing, and I don't want to make it sound like it's easy. But is it easier to escape the pressure and run when no one's allowed to tackle you?
Yes.
I feel like that's sort of playing a little bit unfair. Oh, escape the pressure. Right. It's possible that someone would have flown around the edge and completely snapped him in half, but you're not allowed to do that in practice.
Right.
And so, yes, he escaped.
But they are allowed to pursue at full speed and touch you, and it's mostly like a two-hand touch.
Right.
But I'll say this, when Trey Lance did run around the right side, which was right in front of me, he looked faster than I remember him being, and maybe it's because he's not fully padded, but he showed a little bit of burst.
He can run.
Yeah.
I thought he looked good.
Wow.
I thought that was, what? What
in the 7-on-7s,
he looked good.
A lot of dirt balls.
No.
Yes.
Dirt balls?
Balls where, and there was a couple of deep outs. 7-on-7, and
yes, he missed some. He missed
no
some
blockers,
outs.
and there was a couple of deep outs, and it was like, oh boy. And he had at least one where Brandon Ayuk went up and absolutely rescued him. And that's one of my takeaways from what I saw today is Brandon Ayuk's hands.
Brandon Ayuk.
My God, Mark.
Brandon Ayuk.
This guy, if the ball is anywhere within a 10-foot radius of his body and he gets two hands near the football, he will catch it.
There were two major, obvious wide receiver observations, I think, shared by all of us who were there. Number one, Brandon Ayuk is incredible. He is so talented. His hands are incredible. His body movement, the adjustment to the ball. I am so excited about Brandon freaking Ayuk. That's observation one. Observation two, we now have to call number 19 D Samuel, not Debo, because only half of him is there. He is half the size as what he was last year, and I don't mean that in a bad way, as if he's not cut in muscle, but with all of his talk about how awful he thought he was last year. And then Kyle Shanahan joking about him sending all of these shirtless pictures all offseason. You saw why. He looks so much smaller and therefore hopefully faster.
Right. Hopefully still durable because he does look a little bit, skinnier is not the way to do it. I guess shredded and cut, but he absolutely doesn't have that same girth that I remember seeing him last year in training camp and last year during the season. But the Brandon Ayuk, to me, part of this, he absolutely popped. And I think about going into next offseason, what you do in terms of how do you keep everybody. And Brandon Ayuk is going to make a strong push for either you sign me or you regret it.
Yeah,
you regret letting me go.
You know, I feel like a lot of 49er fans are under the assumption that there is not financial room for both players. I'm not convinced of that. I don't know that there is, but I think there's the assumption that if Brandon Ayuk's going to get paid, Deebo Samuel's going to get traded. I'm not so sure about that. I think that there are creative ways to do it, especially since it goes directly to what has become the clear 49er philosophy. If we draft you and you're awesome, we keep you. That's their philosophy. They have not done that once. I mean, they did it with
DeForest Buckner.
But I'm talking about a second contract. That
would have been his second contract.
That would have been his second?
Yeah, they chose Eric Armstead instead.
No, I understand. Yeah.
I thought that would be his second contract.
I'd have to look that up.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And Mike McGlinchey, but I guess he doesn't fall under the heading of being
a star.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that if you look at McGlinchey, they would have loved to keep him, but the going rate for even a starting right tackle at that level was going to be too rich for their blood in terms of what they're trying to do. And all of this goes to the elephant in the room, which is what happens when Brock Purdy needs to get paid, or if it's Trey Lance who actually stays and pops and he needs to get paid. Because once you start paying a quarterback $35, $40, $45, $50 million, well, now all these questions become moot because you can't have all these guys making big money if your QB's also making 45 or 50.
So speaking of Deebo Samuel with no shirt, that reference, for those of you who didn't hear it, first of all, here's Kyle Shanahan yesterday on Deebo.
I don't think Deebo had to be that harsh on himself to you guys, but it was cool to watch. Deebo's one of the best players in this league, and anytime he doesn't play like one of the best players in this league, everyone's going to be disappointed, including himself, and I think that was the case. It's a fine line to say that he was awful just because he wasn't one of the best players in the league. I think he was disappointed. I think he can get back to playing a little bit more like he did in 21. I think he took one small step back, but that doesn't mean he can take two steps forward, and where Deebo was at, I think the last time you guys saw him, showed that his mind was right to get back to that spot, and that's what's been real cool with him in these 40 days away. Just seeing him yesterday for the first time. Never had a grown man send me so many pictures with his shirt off, but it looks good. And I can tell he's put the work in. So I know you guys heard him that day. That's the last time I really heard him, but I see better than I hear, and Deebo's in a really good spot, and I'm really excited for Deebo this year.
Okay, now here's Deebo's response today.
How many bare-chested pictures did you think?
So, Kyle, kind of funny, man. You know, we was chopping it up. You know, I told him what my goal was coming back, but I had sent him a video of the one I had put on Instagram of me catching the ball, and, you know, he was like, yeah, that's what I like to see. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, you know. He was kind of joking a little bit.
I mean, just the energy. You talk about how different the body looks. Listen to the energy of Deebo Samuel versus last offseason. And I don't know that we gave enough time or credit to this. That contract thing was really weighing on him. And I mean that both figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
That contract was weighing on him, and even after he signed it. I just think his timing got knocked off. His focus had gotten knocked off. His preparation had gotten knocked off, and he feels like it affected his season, and that's unfortunate, even though we don't think he looked that bad. Kyle doesn't think he looked that bad. But translate that to this year, it's all those things. It's comfortability. It's focus on wanting to be better than he was last year. And no doubt he knows Ayuk is coming. No doubt.
Yeah.
He wants to, I'm sure he wants to stay.
And how could that contract not have knocked him off kilter? Because you're basically looking at a situation where if everything goes right, you get generational wealth. And I think Debo ended up getting, $50 million guaranteed. His contract is about $75 million in total, but the guaranteed number is big enough to where he doesn't ever have to work again if he handles his money correctly and he goes ahead and works through the balance of this contract. He knows that he's a made man. What was the number?
58.1 guaranteed.
Yeah, and the total number is like 75, right?
71 and a half.
Yeah, so of course he's going to be knocked off kilter because, there was all the talk about Ayuk then, like, oh, forget paying Debo, and Debo doesn't want to run the ball, and he wants to just be a wide receiver, and all the rest of the slander that was out there. I'm sure Debo was hearing it, and he was, stressing out.